Query acknowledged. State your purpose. Time is critical. I am the management computing program. I manage this sector. Do not question my authority.
Hi everyone, my name is Cyrus. I'm a digital artist, 3D generalist, and game developer. I have over 15 years of experience working in CGI and VFX, and I also spend a lot of time working in real-time experiences and interactive installations. So I use software such as Touch Designer, Unreal Engine, as well as programming languages like Python to bring some of my creations to life. So today I want to share with you a very special tutorial which is going to be about integrating large language models directly into Unreal Engine. So the reason for doing this is you may want to bring life to your NPCs. You may have systems in your game or interactive experiences that may require some kind of LLM system behind it. And you may not want to spend money and depend on external parties to do this, right? So this is why we're actually not going to be using OpenAI, Anthropic, or all of these other companies to power this thing. We're actually going to be running it on our computer. And previously, this was extremely difficult. The processing power required to run these models at a somewhat efficient level was just insane. So it was just not feasible to, let's say, run high-end game experience with Unreal Engine while simultaneously loading up a local language model into your RAM. However, progress is going fast in this space, and most recently there's actually a lot of work being done to sort of compress these models and have them run very efficiently without as much compute and while still performing with great results. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you'll have a pretty good understanding of the benefits of using large language models locally. You'll understand the pipeline in communicating from Unreal Engine to your LLM client. You'll learn how to make HTTP requests from blueprints and hopefully be able to power your NPCs or particular systems via LLMs. The prerequisites for this tutorial is having a basic understanding of Unreal Engine along with its editor and blueprint system. Maybe some experience using large language models, though that is not strictly necessary. It just helps understand how we'll be sort of constructing these requests today. Yeah, with that in mind, we'll be ready to proceed. So this is what we're going to be looking into today. We're going to be using a application called LM Studio, which is a fantastic application that lets you use open source language models directly on your computer. There's also another application called Ollama. Both of these are fantastic tools to really streamline that process. Today, however, we're going to be using LM Studio just because I personally find the user experience quite nice. I think it will be quite easy for many people to kind of follow through and understand how it works. We also need a plugin called VaRest for Unreal Engine. I'll also put that in the description below. VaRest is a plugin which simplifies the process of making HTTP requests within Unreal Engine via blueprints only. So you don't need to go into the code, you just sort of work through it with the node-based system. HTTP requests are just a sort of standard for retrieving, creating, replacing, or destroying data in an application or server database. It's just a sort of communication bridge. There is a built-in plugin for this in Unreal Engine. However, I find VaRest is a very sort of competent plugin. It has a full suite of tools to be able to make those calls. And that's why I find it very efficient. So that's LM Studio, VaRest, and of course your Unreal Engine copy. Bear in mind, all of these tools are free. There's no payment required at all. So you can just go ahead and grab them. And once you've got everything installed, we can move forward. So this is the integration flow that we'll be looking at today. So first off, we'll be typing a message through our user widget from Unreal Engine. This will be sent to VaRest, which will create a request for our LLM server, which will be LM Studio. LM Studio will send back a response in what's called a JSON format, and then we will parse this response into Unreal Engine to update the UI as well. So here's a little example of a HTTP request. Typically, this is something we may do in Python or JavaScript or other programming language, but we'll be recreating this within the Blueprint system, which is a lot of fun, actually. So a request includes a URL. This is the destination of where you'll be making the request to. A method, so this is either get, for example, to retrieve data, or post in order to create data, and certain headers. These could be sort of additional parameters, information, sometimes authorization for that request. And so VaRest really just replicates this, but simplifies it to use within Unreal Engine. Okay, so we're here in Unreal Engine, and I just created a third-person character template, and I don't have much inside except for the third-person character, a chat widget, and a chat response widget. So actually for this tutorial, we'll only be looking at the chat widget, which is essentially just an input box to type our prompt, and the response will be just displaying as a print string. So this is an editable text box, and when we have hit the enter key after typing, we trigger an event. So this is onText committed, it triggers an event. The event will call a custom function called, a custom event called call LLM inside of our third-person character blueprint, and then it will clear the text. And when it calls this event, it also sends the text contents. So if we double click this, we can see that this is the actual event, and this is where we'll be building our logic from. So now we're ready to proceed and start creating our VaRest blueprint setup. So the first thing we need is what's called a VaRest subsystem. This is the engine for VaRest to construct the requests. So from this subsystem, we're gonna click the output pin, drag, and type in construct JSON request. This is the node we're interested in. And you'll see here we have verb, and this refers to the different actions we were talking about earlier with get, post, put, and delete. So I'm going to select post because we're not trying to just retrieve content, we're actually sending data as well before we retrieve. So we're gonna hit post, and then the content type, you can use a form. This is a very straightforward way to construct a request, but I personally recommend using JSON because even though we're doing this as blueprints, JSON is a bit closer to how you would do it in another programming language. So I personally, advise for mirroring as closely as possible to, let's say, how we would do it in Python or JavaScript, so that you can better understand and be able to edit things in the future. So we're going to connect the event to the construct JSON request. And then the next node we want is called set request object. So we're going to click return value output pin and type in set request object. And this is to actually construct the JSON object or the piece of data that we'll be sending. So from this pin here, we're going to click and drag and type in make JSON. And this node lets you create a JSON body. So this, may be an object array, strings, booleans, different types of values that we put in here. So right now it's empty, and we're gonna pull the detail panel here. So the output, the inputs here are for our JSON. So I'm gonna click the add element, and the first two elements that we need here is one string and one object array. So I'm gonna explain that in just a second. So first type string, and the second type will be object and type array. So we need another make JSON object, and this one will be two strings. So plus here and another plus, and now we have two strings. And we're gonna duplicate this one. So we have two nodes here. And for the first node, we're gonna type in role and then content. And for the role, I'm going to type in system. And for the content, I'm going to type in you are Marvin, a friendly robot. Speak casually. And then for the second node, we're gonna also call it the first string a role, and second one content. Then the first role here will be user, and the content will be our prompt. All right, so what we have here is we have first the system input, and then the user input. And in between those is where we would fit our chat history, but we'll get to that in just a second. So now I need to connect these, but as you can see, this is an array, and we need to name our array, by the way. It will be called the messages array. And all of these are not random. This is what our LLM expects as our HTTP request parameter here. So because this is an array and these are single objects, we need to actually pull one and type in make array. And this way we can create an array before plugging it in. So I'm gonna hit the plus here to connect the second one, and then connect the array to messages. Okay. All right, so now we're almost there. We also need to call this string here model, and this is where we'll be inputting the actual model ID that we'll be using. So next up, we're ready to proceed with what's called the process URL node. So I'm gonna pull the output pin again of the construct JSON request, and I'm going to type in process URL. All right, and I can connect this execution here. Okay, and the URL is our destination for the request, right? So there's actually two things that we need. We need the URL and then what's called the endpoint. So to start out with the URL, we're gonna go ahead and open LM Studio to see what we need exactly. So when you're in LM Studio, the first thing you want to do is come down to the left bottom section here, and instead of user, you want to click on the developer tab, and this will just give you additional tools on the interface to be able to set this up. So we want to head over to discover, and inside discover we can search for different available open source models. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Gemma 3 NE4B, And this is a 4 billion parameter model, very small. It's only 4.24 gigs, and in my case I can fully offload it to the GPU. And I'm gonna go ahead and pick the first quantized version here, Q4KM, and hit download. And I'll come back to you when this is completed. Okay, so we're back and the model has successfully downloaded, and now we're ready to proceed. So I can go ahead and close these windows here, and make sure you head over to the developer tab in the top left section here, the green icon. And this is where you'll be able to load your models as a server. So I'm going to go ahead at the top here and click select the model to load, and I'm going to load the newly downloaded E4B model. So we're gonna go ahead and click this. It's going to load it in RAM, and here it's fully loaded. So now, however, our server has not started. In order to start the actual server, we need to tick this little toggle up here, and now you'll see the server has been started, and we have a URL as well. So we're going to take this URL and head back into Unreal Engine, and we're going to paste it inside of our URL string here. So this is the local host as well as the port number. In this case, the port is 1234. However, this is not enough. We also need what's called an endpoint. So together, the URL and the endpoint form our full destination for the request. So I'm going to go back into LM Studio. And in here, if you go down to this section, you'll see supported endpoints. You'll see, for example, this is the get method. This would get a list of all your available models, but we're interested in this second one here. So I'm going to highlight it and control copy, go back into Unreal Engine, and right next to our URL here, you're going to paste this endpoint and make sure there's no additional lines here. And so now we have the HTTP 127.0.0.1, and then the port 1234, and then the endpoint v1 chat completions. And now we're ready to send this request. However, we also need to retrieve the response that's sent back to us. So we need a couple more things. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this execution pin and type bind request, bind event on request complete. And we're gonna connect the target to the construct JSON request. And then you'll see we have a pin for event. So what this does is that it can trigger an event when the response is retrieved. So we can pull this pin here and type in custom event, add custom event. Also, by the way, if you don't see any of the VaRest nodes, just make sure to untick context sensitive. Sometimes that can mess up the search a little bit. So we have our custom event here. We can rename it to LLM response. And this is our response object. So in order to display it in full, we can grab the node called get response content as string. And this will give us a string, which is the entire raw content response. And so I'm going to click and drag and type in print string just to be able to print this response. And this is it. This is our full request. Just with this, you'll be able to talk to LM Studio and get a response back. So I'm going to hit compile and save. Oh, actually, one more thing. Sorry, not so fast. We also need the model ID. So this is very important to specify which model we're actually talking to. So I'm going to go back to LM Studio. And up here, you'll see the Google Gemma 3N E4B. You can click copy. This is the identifier for our model. So I'm going to go back to Unreal Engine and just copy paste this here. And so now we also know which model we'll be speaking to. Hit compile and save, and I'm ready to test this out. So I'm going to hit play. I have my input box here. I'm going to type, hey. And here we have our response. Oh, quite short because I didn't increase the duration. But as you saw, it was a full string. Let me just edit the duration so that we have it last a bit longer here. Hey. And so here we have our response, and you can see the model. This is the correct model, and it comes through a choice object array. The first element here is an object with index and message, and then the second is an object with role assistant, content. Hey there, whoa, greetings, it's good to see you. Just processing. Oh, right, I'm Marvin, what's up? So it's successfully speaking to Marvin. And however, this is the entire response. We don't need all of this. We're just interested in the content response. So I'm going to show you how to grab this, just the output. So let's close this and go back into the blueprint. And we can go ahead and delete the get response content as string. And instead, we're going to grab the get response object. And this is essentially a way to dive in and get the specific value that we want. So the first thing I'll fetch here is the get array field. And this will be choices. So you remember we had an array of objects, and then we get the first iteration of this, the first copy of this object. And with this pin here, we can grab as object. So this is just a way to open this particular first index. Okay. And now, as this object, we need to get first the message object and then the content string. So I'm going to click and drag get object field. And this will be messages. And then inside of this object, we have get string field. And this string field will be content. And then this is the actual content response that we need. So we're fetching the response object, getting the choices object array, getting the first index of this array, and as an object, we're getting the sub-object, which is messages, and then under this object, we're getting the string content, which is the actual response content. So hopefully this will start to make sense as you use it and get more familiar with JSON schema, but this is a very straightforward way to do this within the blueprint system. So I can hit compile and save, and we're gonna try this again. Hi. Okay, something went wrong. Oh, let's check our error. Oh, small error. It's not messages plural for the response, it's message singular. Compile and save, my bad. Let's close this and hit play. Hi. And here we have our response, including emojis. So this is something we can specify in the system prompt as well. So we're going to go back to our notes here. Whenever we speak to the AI model right now, we're just sending a one-off message and there's no message history at all. So it's good practice to keep a message history so that the AI is more context aware. It knows what you just discussed before you send your next prompt. But also, even for the first interaction, it's good to have, let's say, a template message history to kind of set the tone. Because you can set this inside of the system prompt, but setting it as role user and role assistant is just a more sure way to make sure it'll respect that format. So I'll show you what I mean by this exactly. So go ahead and add a couple more pins here. We're going to add 2 more pins. 1, 2. Can move this over. And make sure that your that your last message here is at the last pin. And in between here, we'll add a message history. So I'm going to take this JSON object, copy and paste it, and then copy Control D to duplicate. And the first one, I'll write user, that's correct. And the second one, I'll write assistant. And for the user, I'll say, hi, what's up? And for the assistant content, I'll write a response that will sort of set the tone of how the AI should respond. So I'm going to type in, howdy partner, doing just fine. How's you? All right, and I'm gonna connect these over here. And now if we test this out, hey there, glad to see you around. Just processing the universe and trying to keep my circuits from overheating. Nothing too exciting happening here in Robotville. What's got you buzzing today? So it's already defining the tone a bit more. Okay, so this is about it for now. This was a very straightforward way of setting this up. Of course, you can go a lot deeper. You can set up different arrays for keeping, the chat history. This was a very sort of simple approach, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how you can take this further. So for the next bit, I just want to show you a demo of another project where I've integrated this along with a bit more bells and whistles. So I'm going to go ahead and open this demo. And you can see I can walk around. And if I try to hit the enter key here, nothing happens. However, when I get close to this entity and hit enter, I now have an input chat window. I'm going to type in hello.
Acknowledge, state your objective.
And you can see that in this case, we actually have text-to-speech. So the AI actually talks back to us. And we also have further fun things such as an actual voice recording. So if I hit the key R on my keyboard, hello, how are you?
Operational, systems nominal, how can I assist you, status.
And so you can see that it's also recording my voice, processing that to a text-to-speech, and that just allows for a more kind of natural back and forth. So that's about it. This was to show you the types of possibilities that lie ahead. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This is my first time making this sort of content. So if you did enjoy, please do leave some feedback. That would be greatly appreciated. And with that said, have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.